Hey everyone, I'm Rather Coherent, and today I wanted to talk about Arkham Horror for a little while. Recently, PBG uploaded a top 5 Seeker cards video. I haven't watched it yet, but I immediately got hyped when I saw that, because shit-talking how broken Seeker cards are is basically why I started making Arkham Horror content. And my first thought when I saw that video was there's at least 7 truly busted cards in the class, and narrowing it down to 5 is really hard. So I'll be doing a top 10, and even then I have 3 honorable mentions. And of course, I'll be ranking the taboo versions of these cards, otherwise the original Mr. Rook would have been the #1 spot on this list, despite its incredibly stiff competition. But I want to start things off with my 3 honorable mentions: Mr. Rook, Burn the Midnight Oil, and Scroll of Secrets. Mr. Rook is part of the reason that Seekers never die. They have no shortage of expendable allies with really good soak for their cost and really good effects that run out and then you kill the ally to keep you alive. Mr. Rook is still probably the best of them, even in his mutated state, but just the shit in Seeker that he competes with is so strong that he's not in the top 5, he's not even in our top 10. Burning the Midnight Oil is probably one of the best economy cards in the game, but it's in Seeker, and there are 2 more economy cards that are directly better than it available in the class. That said, this may as well just read fast, gain 2 resources, which is a nuts card, and the fact it's not higher in the list is a huge part of why I wanted to make this video. And again, Scroll of Secrets is an absolutely fantastic card. I considered placing it higher, but the main reason it gets crowded out, despite effectively being 1 cost to draw 3 cards, discard any weaknesses drawn, and you can use this on your teammates instead of you as well, like it is truly nuts. But it takes up a hand slot while you're doing it, and hand slots come at a premium in Seeker. It's still an absolutely incredible card, but Seekers just have so much genuinely busted shit available to them that I couldn't justify putting any of these in my top 10. And honestly, I go back and forth on how high analysis should be a lot. This lets Seekers ignore the autofail token, and God knows autofail is the only thing making them fail book checks in the first place, so this can be pretty nuts, but it does have a very real cost on it. By the way, if the most recent taboo list hadn't basically gutted the Clue Dropper archetype, I might have ranked this higher, and I definitely would have shown research notes just now. But with the research notes archetype being nerfed so aggressively by the max 3 instead of like a limit 3 or something, you end up in a situation where analysis is still really, really good. It gets pulled off practice makes perfect 2, you better believe is showing up on this list, but it's still just, like, the costs are doing it so big. It's absolutely incredible. I can see putting it higher on the list, but unlike all the stuff higher on the list, this has like a 1 in 16 chance of being game-changing, but the other ones are just great 15 out of 16 times every time you don't draw the autofail. So while I really appreciate the safety of analysis, I can't in good conscience put it higher than my 10th place. And 9, we have Shortcut, and it really sets the bar for just how busted Seekers can be. Instead of like paying resources or actions, you just move. You can just have somebody be somewhere else. And it's very important that that's not you. This is your teammates. Shortcut is one of the only ways, and I'm being overly cautious of that wording in case I'm forgetting something, but I'm pretty sure it is the only way to move your teammate outside of their turn without them doing something like safeguarding after you, right? Seekers are able to move other people during their turn without spending actions or resources, and that's fucking nuts. However, it doesn't really win games. It's really efficient. There are times where this saves lives for sure, but it doesn't just find the clues and beat the scenario. So again, it's just getting pushed out by other things. In my 8th spot, we have Crack the Case. And Crack the Case is the start of Seekers being secretly the best support class in the game, or not so secretly, I guess. A lot of their best cards can just work on other people. Crack the Case is very oftentimes fast, gain 4 resources, distribute it as you like. And sure, you have to have done your job a little bit before then, but that's still an incredible resource card. I would definitely say that Stand Together Level 3 and Faustian Bargain are the only resource cards in the game that I view as being genuinely better than Crack the Case. Crack the Case is absolutely busted, and the fact that I'm comparing it to 3 experienced cards goes a long way to show just how busted I think it is. And there's not a lot to say about it. Just fast, gain as much money as you're willing to be greedy for. If you need 3 right now, you can get 3. If you're willing to wait, you might even get 5 later. It's an incredibly strong economy card, just like Burning the Midnight Oil, but unlike Burning the Midnight Oil, it's getting you more money, albeit slower, and the huge part is able to give it to your teammates. Because very often, being able to get your Guardian some money in the first couple of turns is way, way more beneficial than getting yourself money right at the start. In 7th place, and this is exactly the card I was thinking of when I saw the list and I didn't know how I would be able to get down to a top 5, it is Grim Memoir. When I say hand assets are crowded, there's a lot of shit Seekers want to do, and Grim Memoir ranks very highly amongst it as a 3-cost hand asset. With uses 4, you get to investigate at +2 book, and if you succeed by 2 or more, you draw a card. So either the book was helpful and you get a clue you would have missed, or you get a card. 3-cost draw 4 is absolutely worth playing in Seekers as high as your card quality is. But additionally, it's likely to get you clues that you otherwise wouldn't have gotten or felt the need to invest skills trying to do. Grim Memoir is an incredibly strong hand asset, and it's crazy that I don't think it's the best one, because coming in at number 6, I have Magnifying Glass. If you want to pass by 2 to draw, you probably want a Magnifying Glass in your other hand. And unlike Grim Memoir, Magnifying Glass costs 1 and it's fast. There's so much less opportunity cost to a Magnifying Glass, and since Grim Memoir still wants you to equip it, I felt like it would be disingenuous to ever rank Grim Memoir above Magnifying Glass. There are very few situations where I see a character running one without the other, running Grim Memoir without the Magnifying Glass, but a ton of characters will just take a Magnifying Glass and run out of slots to fit the Grim Memoir. Which gets us into our top 5. And the top 5 of Seekers is just well and truly disgusting, buckle up. Even in his nerf state, Dr. Milan Christopher is a +1 book ally, and every time you successfully investigate, he gives you a resource, meaning that very soon he'll be free, and by the end of the game, he will be generating you a ton of money. In some characters, like Trish in particular, this late economy is far more valuable because you can embezzle all the money that Dr. Milan is making, and that's just disgusting. But no matter who you're playing, because you have cards like Crack the Case, Milan can fund all of your late game, and then you're able to give the Crack the Case away to your teammates. You're able to convert the resources he's given you with cards like Grim Memoir into draw. So no matter what, unlike a lot of classes, your Seeker will usually be able to find late game value out of this one resource. And it's here I must mention the taboo list again. Higher education is back to its base game state, meaning Seekers can once again spend 3 experience to be completely immune to head checks in the second half of a scenario when Milan has paid them up. In light of the taboo change to higher education, I am tempted to move Milan up, but this is a specifically level 0 list, meaning higher education shouldn't be a factor in the decision making too much, but the fact that it's there is really important, even as just like an eventual thing you're planning to build into. Coming to our 4th spot, it's everyone's favorite complete bullshit item that refuses to get nerfed. It's the Occult Lexicon. It's not level 3, it only hits for 2, but what it doesn't do is roll any dice to hit. You play Occult Lexicon, they take 2 damage. Sure, you have to discard 2 cards, and that sucks. I should probably get blood right out if I'm gonna talk about this, huh? For those of you newer to Arkham Horror, the Occult Lexicon gives you blood right. Draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, pay 2 resources, deal 2 damage. There's a lot more text there, but that's what it says. And no, they don't get to hit you because this attack does not provoke attacks of opportunity. Occult Lexicon lets you use that Milan money in the late game to just kill the boss. Fuck the Guardian, he's only here to protect me early, I don't need him in the late game. Occult Lexicon allows Seekers not just to flex fight a little bit, but to flex in a way where they deal with the biggest problems in the scenario more than the dedicated fighter does in many cases. Occult Lexicon is egregiously out of line, and every time I see a taboo list without Occult Lexicon getting nerfed, it dampens my hype just a little bit. And the fact it's only in 4th place is really because as the Seeker, it's not your job to kill the enemies. You can. I've got a campaign in Forgotten Age where I played 2 Seekers and neither of them invested a single thing into flex fighting. They weren't Joe Diamond, they weren't able to dodge or shit, it was Amanda and Mandy, and they both ran Occult Lexicon and Ancient Stones for damage, and neither of them ever used anything else, and they got through fucking Forgotten Age, basically on the back of Occult Lexicon alone. You really don't need anything else to more than carry your weight for fighting. But that's not your job, and fighting is necessary to win scenarios, but it's not how you win them. So it doesn't get higher than 4th place, despite the fact that it's probably the card whose power level I'm the angriest at. Now, when it comes to actually winning the scenario, in 99% of cases, the way you do that is by finding clues. And Deduction says fast to discover a clue. Technically, it doesn't say that, you have to pass a test. The autofill token's there can be cursed cascades. You are a Seeker, you test book, and you succeed at it, that's your job. Did you see Magnifying in Grim Memoir earlier? Milan's giving you a book and he's about to give you $1 just commit Deduction. You could probably commit both, but that tends to back in the autofill. The point is that Deduction is just working a hunch, but without the cost. unless you're playing with a bag filled with autofails, as some maniacs are inclined to do. But generally speaking, deduction is just gain a clue. And it might be more complicated than that, but seekers are pretty broken. It's really not much more complicated than that. And because you can only run 2 deductions, you do need 28 other cards in your deck. This only makes it to 3rd place on the list, which is just hilarious to me. And number 2, it's deep knowledge. See, one of the only ways a seeker can really lose is if their partner, the guardian, the bodyguard, whoever's protecting them, if that guy just fails to find their weapons and you get bogged down and beaten to death. Deep knowledge being in your deck means you can say, hey, do you have a weapon yet? And if they don't, you throw them 3 cards. It's one of those things, like Crack the Case, where the team support of a seeker is invaluable in addition to their raw clue finding power. Additionally, at any point in the game, you can deep knowledge yourself and find 3 cards in your seeker deck, and being seeker cards, this will have been nuts. You'll get like Crack the Case, Deduction, and I don't know, second Milan so you can use the first one for soak. It won't matter. You probably won if you're playing deep knowledge in the late game. But draw 3 for effectively no cost, because the curse tokens are bad. They will oftentimes fuck you up, but they will oftentimes also do nothing. Deep knowledge is so strong for such a little cost. And essentially, it's just accelerating the ability to find every other card on the list. It's incredibly good. But there's one card that is just well and truly the best seeker card in the game, and there's really no 2 ways about it. It's everyone's favorite card, Practice Makes Perfect. Practice Makes Perfect is ranked higher than Deduction because it can be 2 copies of Deduction. Additionally, if you have this in your deck, it allows you to just accelerate through your deck as quickly as Deep Knowledge does. Practice Makes Perfect into a Perception and then using the Perception a second time, essentially 1 cost fast, draw 2 cards, and it's making the test safer as well. It's not as good as Deep Knowledge at drawing cards, but it is not putting curse tokens in the bag. It's still doing something that makes the test easier, and the test is your job at the table. Finding a second copy of Deduction is really good. And again, I shouldn't focus too much on higher levels, but unlike Deduction level 0, Practice Makes Perfect can be Deduction level 2. That is not true of Deduction level 0, that's kind of the point of the distinction. Practice Makes Perfect is the reason that every time I make a Seeker deck, I have to consider, do I just buy Deduction level 2 as my very first experience buy? Do I just put in the thick of it and start with like Hiking Boots Deduction level 2? Because that sounds stupid, but it's probably fine, right? There's probably something I should be specifically pointedly working towards, but if you just get deductions and Practice Makes Perfects and build your deck around drawing them and passing the checks, you turn out to be better than basically every non-Seeker cleaver in the game, because Seekers are a fair and balanced card, or class rather. And additionally, some cards that didn't make it higher in the list exist. Analysis, back in our honorable mentions, means that you just don't auto-fail, and that gets hit by Practice Makes Perfect. And that's 6 cards, you really shouldn't run more than that. There are some characters like Trish or Harvey that are so confident in their ability to keep the deck size small, they just run Deduction and nothing else and Practice Makes Perfect, and it works. So there's a lot of silly things with deck manipulation happening, but just generally speaking, it's a 1-cost event that draws a card that was incredibly good in your deck and then duplicates it. So basically, this card is either Deduction, because you can't run 3 Deduction, so this is your 3rd and 4th copy of Deduction, or if it wasn't Deduction, it shuffles your deck so Deduction can be in the top 9 now, and probably hits a different skill that's going to help you out in the turn anyway. Just like Deep Knowledge can just propel you through your deck faster, Practice Makes Perfect is doing the same thing for the exact same goal, which really is Deduction. Deep Knowledge has the team synergy, but Practice Makes Perfect is better at actually winning the scenario faster. And really, if anyone made any list with all these same cards in different orders and coherent arguments, I'd probably agree with them. I'm about to go watch that PBG video that inspired this one and see what they said, because I didn't want to color my own perspectives, but I imagine they make different arguments for the same cards, because basically the whole Seeker class is busted. I just showed you 13 cards I thought were absolutely insane. I imagine if you ran a deck with 26 of those and the other 4 cards were like fine clothes for meme value, you'd probably still be a better Seeker than a lot of cards or a lot of characters in the game. If someone showed up and they told me that they were playing Jim and they were trying really hard, I'd have less faith in that than somebody who just showed up with the deck I've shown off today. And it's not a deck, it's just a pile of good cards, but it'll still do better than Jim. Anyways, this has been your at least once yearly ramble about how Seekers are fucking busted and it's not okay, but you should still probably bring one to your group and not like die on this hill, because you might die on that hill without a Seeker. You need a Seeker to find clues on that hill. Anyways, I've been Rather Incoherent. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Hope you enjoyed this short video about how Seekers are, as always, broken as hell. See you in the next one.